Okay, let's start out by doing a little review. Just a reminder that your lowest number or your minimum amount goes at the bottom. That would be your base number that you start with. Your maximum would be the largest it can go. And this is the halfway point. And we have the halfway point. What number is the halfway point? 5. Because this whole thing right here is like moving one whole step up in the place value chart. I didn't want that, did I? So let's look at the number 27. And I'm going to put the number 4. What is that called when we break the number down and we kind of crunch it? What is that called? Decomposing. So I could start with decomposing. And where would my 2 go? 2 would move to what place, everybody? And then what do I do with my 7? Everybody? Bring it down. What do I do with my 4? Okay, then what do I do? Okay, what place is a 27 going to move to? Okay, the 10th place. So if I wanted to round to the ones place in this number, I'm going to have you guys click in here in a minute. If I wanted to round to the ones place, what would be the minimum number that I would start with on my vertical line graph? What would be the minimum number that I would start with? So if we're rounding to the ones place, we go to the ones column and we find the bottom number in the ones column, which is 27. And that's going to be my base number. What would be my top number? I'm going to have you guys click that in. What would be the maximum number? If we were going to round 27, what could 27 round up to? The biggest number it could round up to. So my minimum's 27, and I'm rounding the ones place. What's the next number up that comes after 27? Everybody?
28.
28. So the largest I can go with this number through rounding is 28. Let's think about this. What is halfway between 27 and 28? What's halfway between 27 and 28? What do you think? 27.5? Anyone have anything different? What do you think?
Well, you don't really have to add the decimal, so it could just be 275.
275? Well, then that might become 275. So if you had to add the decimal, would you add it like she said, or would you do something different?
2, 7, and 5 hundredths.
500ths?
Are we supposed to put the decimal?
Yeah, if I tell you to put the decimal, then yeah.
2, 7, and 5.
Okay? So it's just like you said, it's 27. Because what would happen if this changed to 10? What would happen? What would happen to the number? If I ended up having more than 9 in this place right here, what would happen to my 27? It would turn into a 28, right? But we're not to 28 yet, are we? We're almost to 28, but we're not quite there yet. So if this is 0.5 or 5/10, what do you think the number is right below that? Directly below that. What do you think the number would be right below that? 27 and 4/10? And what do you think the number would be directly below that?
27 and 3/10.
What do you think the number would be below that?
27 and 2/10.
Did you just say I'm 2/10? I try to relax every day, but it doesn't work very well. Yeah, you're right. 27 and 2/10. And what do you think the number below that would be?
27 and 1/10.
27 and 1/10. And what would be the bottom number? 27 and no tenths, right? So if we start at 27 and 0/10, and then we go all the way up to 27 and 5/10, what do you think's above 27 and 5/10?
27 and 6/10.
27 and 6/10. And what do you think is above that one?
27 and 8/10.
27 and 8/10. Look again. Look again.
Oh, 7.
There you go. 27 and 7/10. Sorry, I had the pen on there so you couldn't see it very well. Okay.
27 and 8/10.
Then 27 and 8/10. 27 and 9/10.
And then it's just 28.
28, because remember, once you fill up a place with 9, because remember the magic number, what's the magic number, everybody? 10. So everybody, once again, make it more convincing, please. What's the magic number?
10.
Thank you. The magic number is 10. And once we get up to 10 in a certain place, that bumps us over to the next one, right? So once we get up to 10, right here, we're bumped up to 28. So remember yesterday we were talking about this like it's a race to the finish line? And the coach looks at all these people right here and he says, you know what, you barely made it past the starting line. Sorry. You need to go back and start over. These are the poor. They just didn't do good enough. These people, he goes, well, you made it at least halfway there, so I'm going to give you credit. And I'm going to say you passed and push you on to the finish line. So what about what happened to that number then? What do you think happened to them?
They could go either way because it's halfway there.
Okay.
5
halfway, didn't he? And everybody who makes it halfway gets to move up. So he made it halfway. Well, let's look at this. We have 27. What do we have right now? We have 27. If I was to look at this number, I have 27 and 4/10. Is he going to the finish line or is he starting over? He's going to start over. He didn't quite make it. So, like we've said in the past, and like Miss Kleppel was telling you yesterday, if it's 5 or greater, you. If it's less. Okay, and when they say go down, that means the neighbor goes down, because you don't want to change it from 27 to 26. It needs to stay the same. So it stays the same. It doesn't go down. The only number that might go down is the one that's following it. So here's a question for you. What is based on our chart, using the 10ths place, what is the maximum number that we could go to? I'm going to have you click in. What's the maximum number we could go to without rounding? So what's the highest you can go and still not be able to round up? And you can use decimals on your clickers for this one. Okay, just remember that once we get to this point right here, the number rounds up, right? Once we hit that midway point, that means all of these numbers stay the same because they didn't meet the challenge. They're not changing, they're staying the same. Well, what is the number that is right below the midpoint? 27 and 4/10. So the maximum number that you can go to before having to round up, if you are looking at the 10ths place, is 27 and 4/10. So I want you to look at this now, and you're going to click in. You ready? Click in the minimum number that you can have that will make you round that to 28. So the minimum number that will make you round that to 28. The one that says, okay, I did my best, I just barely made it, but I made it. So you're going to click in the minimum number that will get that 27 to 28. Okay, the lowest you can go on this scale before you have to stay at 27 is this number right here. 27 and 5/10 is the minimum value that you can go before this number just stays at 27. Let's try something different. Okay, we're going to look at the problem set. Number 1, it says write the decomposition that helps you, then round to the given place value. So the first step in these directions is to do what? What are you supposed to do? Decompose the number. So go ahead and write that number on a place value chart. And I want you to decompose it. And then I'll have you send me answers of what numbers you have in each column. Okay, I had a good question a minute ago about why we do this What is that called? Decomposing. It's just another way for you to look at numbers. You know, if I had a number like if I had a number like 45 and 9/10, actually, let me add a number to that. $9,500. I would look at the neighbor, you know, if it's 5 or greater, it rounds up. Well, for some people, that might be a little confusing. Because then you would have to say, okay, well, if I round this up, then that means this is going to have to change, and that might even end up changing. So it gets confusing. But if you have something like this, and you have to round that up one place, what's the next number up? 460. So it's a different way to look at things to make it not so complicated for you. So actually, they're breaking it down so that you have a better visual of what you need to do next. I think rounding 459 is a lot easier than rounding 45 and 9/10, because once you start getting into the tenths and all that, it might get a little confusing for some of us, you know? I mean, if you can just whip those numbers out, that's great, but I kind of like breaking it down like this. I like this method that they use. There's a method to their madness. Okay, so we're rounding to the nearest tenth. Which column am I going to go to? I'm going to the tenths place. And which number am I looking at in the tenths place? I'm going to look at my bottom number, which is 326. What's my minimum number going to be on my number line? What do you think? 326 is going to be the bottom. And remember, we're talking about tenths. What's going to be my maximum number? My maximum. 327. And what do you think my midpoint's going to be? I'm not going to have you tell me. I'm going to have you click that in and tell me, what is my midpoint going to be for this number? Okay, so we said halfway point is 326. You really don't want to put like a decimal there right now, because then in the future you might put the decimal in the wrong place, and that would give you 326. And that wouldn't work, would it? So what a solution would be maybe to draw the line like on the place value chart, you know, right here. You see that line? And you write the number that's on this side. Well, halfway point would be 5, right? But what's on the other side of our number? 9. So it'd be 326, 9. So what would happen to that number? Everybody, would it round up or stay the same? Round up. Okay, we said that if we were to round to the tenths place, that our number would be 327 tenths. But now comes a point where we have to put that back in regular formation. Well, if you want to know how many places are in tenths, how many zeros are in 10? Remember that what we talked about last week? How many zeros do you have in 10?
1.
1. So if you're rounding to the tenths place, how many numbers are going to be behind the decimal? 1. So it would be because if I round to the tenths place, I have one number. Everybody, if I round it to the hundredths place, how many numbers would I have behind the decimal? Everybody.
2.
If I round to the thousandths place, how many numbers would I have behind decimal? 3. Okay, on 1A it says round to the nearest tenth. We just round to the nearest tenth. It was 32 7/10. Now I'm going to have you try to round to the hundredths place on your own. But here are the directions. When you round to the hundredths place, you can use the numbers just, hello. You can use the numbers just like this on your vertical number line. I'll be coming around to look at your vertical number lines to make sure you're doing them correctly. You can round to the hundredths place, but once you're done rounding, the answer I want you to send me is standard form, which means how many numbers are going to be behind a decimal. Raise your hand if you can tell me. How many numbers will be behind a decimal? Show me with your fingers. Everybody. Okay, so you're going to have your number, but you're going to have a decimal with 2 numbers after it. And see, that's another thing I like about this, doing it this way also, is that in the past I've had a lot of students who forgot to put zeros where they were supposed to go and stuff, so there's pros and cons to both sides. So what are your directions? The first thing you're going to do is draw a vertical number line. What's your bottom number going to be? What's your maximum number going to be? Maximum. 3,270, and what's your halfway point?
326.
So you're going to send me your answer that's rounded to the I'm going to be coming around right now to look at your vertical number lines to see where you have decided to write this number on your line. Okay? Let's look at this a different way, because some of us are getting confused as to why you would look at the number next door. I always like to kind of refer back to money. Let's say that I have let's say I have 50 cents right now in my pocket, okay? Raise your hand if you've ever been out somewhere with someone and you saw a penny laying on the ground. You go, oh, there's a penny, and they're like, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Just walk on. Because it's no big deal, right? I mean, shoot, I pick up a penny. I pick up everything I can get. But some people might think it's not worth it. How about, like maybe even a dime? It's just 10 cents. But someone's dropping quarters on the ground. You see 50 cents laying on the ground. See the JFK down there, the $50. I might bend over and pick that up. 50 cents, that's a pretty good deal. If I see more than 50 cents, I'd be picking that up, especially $1, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the way it is with math, that, if I have a number like this, say I have 55 cents, and I just want to carry around like the big change. I don't want those little pennies everywhere. I could trade them in maybe. Maybe someone would be nice, and so I give you 5 cents, which is half of a dime, right? Give you 5 cents. I met you halfway, right? So could you give me like a dime in exchange? If you were asking me, I'd probably give you a dime. You'd have enough to go to the vending machine. I don't know. So sometimes you want to look at this neighbor, and if it's greater than 5 or 5 or greater, then that number rounds up. What happens to this number? Yeah, it goes away, right? We've exchanged it. If you've exchanged it, you're not going to still have 5 there, are you? I just exchanged it for a dime. So I wouldn't have 65 cents because I gave them my 5 cents and they gave me a dime because I was halfway there. If I had 4 cents in my pocket, they'd be like, no, I'll go ahead and I'll take your 4 cents. Leave you with 50 cents. So the reason we're doing this right here and we're not looking at the 9, but we're looking at the neighbor, is because everything after the place that we're rounding to doesn't matter anymore. Okay, eyeballs up here, not on your clothes. So if this place no longer matters, then it's going to disappear. That's why you have to either take the rest up and trade it, or it stays the same. So, whoa. So let's look at this. Let me show you a different way to look at this whole thing. If we're rounding to the 100th place, we're going to the very bottom of the 100th row, correct? Well, of course it would highlight every other row. Oh my goodness, this thing. Guess it just depends on what color you want now, huh? Okay, so if I say round to the 100th place, this is the last row where we have hundreds, right? Let's just change to art. This is the last row that we have hundredths, correct? That's the last row. That's the last row. They say round to the 100th place. Well, guess what? I I don't need to look at these rows. And I don't need to look at this row. All I need to look at is what's in, let me change the color again because obviously that's too dark. There we go.
White. Woohoo.
All I need to look at now is what's in the hundredths row. This is the very last place that we had a number, right? Before we moved over. You go to that very last place. I got a lot of people not looking at me and they're not going to know at all what to do. Go to the very last row that has a number. Why don't you just write the number down below? And then what am I going to put in parentheses behind it? 7. So we know 3,269 is going to go somewhere on here, right? Which number is going to decide if it goes on top or on bottom of the halfway point? Okay, so which number out of all these numbers right here, which one's going to tell me if I put my number up here above the halfway or down here below the halfway? Bingo, you got it. Good job. The 7. So now you have to ask yourself, well, I know 3,269 is going on there, right? Which one is bigger, the 5 or the 7? The 7. So where's the 7 going to go? Above or below the halfway point? Above. What is that green number closest to? 3,270 or 3,269? It's closest to this, correct? That's going to be your answer. Now, it says round to the hundredths place, correct? So what would happen if we took that number, the very last number, and put it in the hundredths place? Can someone read that number to me? 32 and 70 hundredths, or
1070.
no,
3,270.
no,
3,269.
no.
32 and 7 tenths.
Yes, or it could be 32 and 7/10. So what I'm thinking is probably we need to rewind and start looking at only these rows and isolating them, because I think some of you are getting confused when you look at all those numbers. So it's good that you're using dry erase markers, because once you figure which number you have to round to, erase everything else except that row. And that just leaves you with the number, just like this. So, on 1A, it says round to the hundredths place. What are you going to write down on your paper? 32 and 70 hundredths, or 32 and 7/10, right? guess I didn't need to erase that. Yeah, I do need to erase that. I did. Okay, we're going to do this number one more time, but this time, what place are we focusing on? Whole number. This is a whole number, remember? This is part. So, 32 and 697 thousandths. So we're rounding to the whole number. So first of all, you need to do what? What are you going to do, everybody? Go ahead. Nobody's saying it. Everybody's kind of like, ooh. By Thursday, we're half brain dead. By tomorrow, we'll be, see ya, another planet. Boy, my young lady over here, though, she has been on a roll. Decompose the numbers. So, go for it. Quickly, decompose. It is the same number, but if you took my suggestion and erased everything but that one line, then you would have to decompose it again. Now, here's what I would do. If you're having a hard time with this, I would continue to decompose it, or I would just look at this and say, okay, at what point am I going to move over here? I'm no longer in the whole number place, right? I'm no longer in the whole numbers, so I can stop there. What is my last whole number? What is the last whole number I wrote up there? 32. And that's right there, correct? So I'm going to just erase everything else because 32 is my last number in the whole number place, right? And where am I going to write my 32? On the vertical number line of what part? Top or bottom? Yeah, oh my goodness. You are on a roll. And what's going to go on the top? 33. And what's going to be my midpoint?
It's going to be 32 and 5.
Let's look at our number. We have the number 32. And what's the number right after it? 6. Is 6 greater than 5? So where would I put my number? Above or below? Above. You know what? I said that about you guys being asleep, and it's like all of a sudden everybody's awake. Are you feeling like you're starting to kind of understand this? Yes. Does it help to erase the whole line and then use a parentheses? Yep. Yeah. Okay, good. So if I were to round this number to the nearest whole number, Raise your hand if you can tell me what I will be left with. Yay! Woohoo! Let's do a dance. Give me thumbs up if you guys feel like you're with me now. You with me? Kind of. Some of you still. You know, it's got to be honest, because then I know who I need to help still, you know. So, the third answer on 1A for rounding to the whole number would be 33. And there you have it.